Peace. Welcome to the Mask Off Podcast, the intersection of life, mental health, and hip hop culture. Today, we have a good friend of mine, a Brooklyn resident, co-founder of You Gotta Eat This, a co-host on the Combat Jack Show, as well as the host of the Premium Pete Show. Well, I guess now you know his name. Welcome, Premium Pete. But AKA, really known as, born as.
Well, I mean, it's funny because when you start adding mental health to an episode, you got to be real, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like in hip hop too, nobody talks about governments or whatever, but I mean, it's public knowledge to know. But even like we were talking off air, growing up, you know, my name is Peter Gibaldi. Growing up, I would always have to like let the teacher know, the homeroom teacher know that, you know, that she was spelling it wrong, or she was saying it wrong, or she was pronouncing it wrong. But, you know, I think it's funny when you really think about growing up at a certain age and then sitting back and thinking like where you are from your name to a nickname. You know, it's very weird because it's like, even when I think about like people like Dallas Penn, like he ingrained Premium Pete in my fucking brain. Where to a point where even Premio or Premium, like he would just call like, yo, Premium. And I'm like, what's up, DP? Like, where it's like sometimes you forget what even a person's name is. I hung out with people throughout my life, 10, 15 years. I didn't even know their fucking real name. How close you could get to different people. So, but like I said, when you talk about mental health, I think you have to go back to just being a kid and being who you are, you know, and being your government.
Well, that's what we want to know. We want to know the story of how you became the Premium Pete.
Well, I mean, listen, I think whoever becomes something, you still become it every day, right? You know, it's almost like I think like in this world, and what I use by that is like, you know, I'll see people I knew years ago DM me and be like, yo, I always knew you make it. And I'm like, make what? You know, like, what did I make? You know, like, you know, because I do think that there is a disturbed kind of understanding of what this kind of world is. And what I mean by that is like creatively, you know, it's people, I feel like when you do a podcast, you want to at least be something that somebody could send to somebody else. It's not meant for me and you to kind of like salivate over. It's for us to like kind of prepare the dinner for people. You know, I think when you do like anything to do with mental health. But yeah, let's take it back.
Let's go.
You know,
I know it's Coney Island. What did the family feel like, look like?
You know, growing up, it's funny when you say that because most, especially when they hear my voice or what they call now an accent, I never heard people tell me, oh, I love your accent. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, because I grew up, you know, I never considered, you know, to be an accent. But I guess I would say it's a Brooklyn, Italian, just New York.
I would definitely say that. I would agree.
But I will say this, even before I go back, even somebody like my father, and we'll get to him, but this is a guy who worked 50, 60 years in Wall Street, but regular, nothing crazy. But a guy who like took the train before the sun came up and then came home when the sun was down. Even I think about somebody like him, you know, and the only reason I bring that up for is because it's when I think about my childhood, I didn't see a lot of my father. My father worked 3, maybe 4 jobs. And my mother was, you know, kind of just a housewife and trying to, you know, take care of us. And that was a lot to think, and, you know, at that time. And, you know, as you get older, you start to learn and realize more stuff about yourself and your family and what you didn't know and what you do know. You know, I didn't know my father. We lived upstairs from my aunt's house. You know, I didn't know that they were renting that they didn't, you know, they were charging them a discounted price. But the point I'm making is it took a village for them to provide then a village for us. And to be honest with you, my family has never been really a lot of money makers, but just solid, great people knowing how to create I think a backbone that helped make a lot of people, you know, either family-wise special or business-wise money.
I mean, it felt like there was a lot of love there.
A lot of love. You know, I grew up and I'm the youngest. You know, I grew up to 2 sisters. And, you know, I grew up in this family that was humongous. You know, when I look back, I say to myself, that is why I am who I am. I mean, it was a networking event. Everybody, no, I'm
Like
serious.
Sunday dinner?
I mean,
Sunday
I had
supper?
30 cousins at least, and cousins are our first best friends. I mean, now I feel like a deadbeat cousin.
And 30 cousins like in the vicinity?
Well, I'll give you an example. My mother, her sister, her name is Marie, right? She had 2 daughters and a son. My uncle was my godfather. He had a son and 2 daughters. Then somebody else had 2 daughters.
Here?
Somebody else had 2 sons and a daughter. So there was, but the point I'm trying to make, when you start adding up, that's like 15 cousins already.
Yep.
But we were so close. Like one thing about my family that I always appreciate, which is not the best thing, but if you were with somebody older or trusted, you were good. So, you know, that could lead into a lot of trouble because some of my cousins weren't the greatest kids. But cousins are our first best friends. And I think they're the foundation of learning stuff a lot of times. And it's sad though, but as you get older, I feel like you become, you know, like a deadbeat cousin. You know, I mean that, you know, life is just, not saying I don't keep in touch with a lot of people, but anyone who's listening to this could understand. Maybe you don't fully keep in touch with everybody, but at one point in time, they were very special in your life. Even like friends I would have come by, they would get a headache before they said goodbye because they would have to say goodbye. It wasn't just like an Irish goodbye where you say, all right, see you later. You know, all right, take a bye, goodbye. Before you know it, you're dizzy. Like that. I had girlfriends who were like, kind of like, hey, can I just say goodbye? Man, you got to go back. You know, and they would complain because some of my aunts, you know, listen, some Italian aunts, they may have had a beard, you know, like, you know, a little 5 o'clock shadow, you know. But it made everybody unique.
Yeah.
And now that I look back at it, you know, I'm thankful for the diversification in my family because it helped develop my immediate family and then me.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like, you know, I was talking about this earlier with you, but when you grow up in a neighborhood, especially at that time, you know, when you think about it, it's a very different time than it was now. So it's like I could have easily, if I didn't grow up in Coney Island, I always give, even though I didn't make my bones in Coney Island, we left when I was 13, and I moved on over to like Bensonhurst Bay Ridge in Brooklyn. I didn't make my bones in Coney Island, but it made me so diversified, so chameleon, so who I am today. I mean, even you think about it, like, you know, I told you my mother's Marie, this one's Roseanne, this one's, you find all these Italians, Paul, Peter, this, that. My daughter's name is Skylar, my son's name is Tristan. You know, I didn't stay with an Italian woman, and nothing against any Italian woman. I just wanted to find somebody that it didn't matter who they were. It mattered if we connected, if we had the same energy, if we cared about each other. And I feel like I did that along because my parents were open-minded. You know, my son's, you know, my daughter's mother is Puerto Rican, my son's mother is West Indian. I remember people asking me like, hey, how did your parents feel about you being in a mixed relationship? And then I dropped this on them. I said, well, both of my sisters are gay. And they've been married for 20 years, before there was even a married thing. So having a father who worked in like, you know, in the city that invited like city friends to a marriage in the late 90s for 2 women, I found that fascinating.
Yeah.
Because
that's pretty progressive.
People make fun of people like that.
Yeah.
And he wasn't embarrassed. And it opened the eyes for me, even though, and I say this all the time, but I have to say it here. I go from Coney Island. Homeless people weren't even called that. They were called bag ladies, or we used to call them different things. People were nervous. But I saw so many different people. I had Russian friends down the block. I had Spanish friends that hung out on 23rd Street. I was friends with people on 33rd Street. So I knew a little bit of everything. But when I moved over to Bensonhurst and Bay Ridge, even though I'm proud to be Italian, I'm not proud, and I would never be this, and I never have been this, but I had somebody come over, hey, Pete, yeah, come here, let me talk to you for a second. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? They're like, hey, you can't have those type of people around here. Well, what type of people are you talking about? Because these are the people I've been hanging out with for 13 years of my life.
It's the only people I know.
Yeah, playing Altered Beast. And that's what we were doing today. So right away, you see that, and just to let you know, that, and not that we don't know this, and we're not going to dissect this to a point, but that comes from inside families. It's uncles, that's brothers, it's cousins that are still pushing that type of evilness. And that was something I never and will never be involved and never have, and have shown, and even speaking, when we speak about kids, it makes me think. It makes me think about how the choices that my family made, they were able to not take, because back then it was very super judgmental.
Yeah. Well, also you come from a traditional culture, right?
Yep.
Traditional kind of like way of doing things. People, especially go to those neighborhoods, right? They're very insular.
Yep.
There's not a lot of, you go to Bensonhurst, it's not a lot of,
But
juxtaposition of ethnicities out there.
But one thing I never understood, and still to this day, and no disrespect, it is what it is. But even like a lot of those type of neighborhoods, they loved hip hop. But what, you don't love what it's about?
Yeah. Well, I think.
See, that's something I'll never get down with. And because, keep in mind, back in the day, and when we think about it, growing up, and I was saying this, hip hop was a fad. We talk about Ralph McDaniels, the legend, the icon. Even he was saying, as he's pushing, people were telling him it's a fad.
Yeah.
When I used to run home after school to watch him. And without going on a tangent, I do want to, touch on that. We were saying something. I don't want to, why I brought up Ralph.
Well, no, we were talking about the juxtaposition of neighborhoods and things are insular and ethnically.
Yeah, no, but what I mean is when I say is people who are not willing to like be very open-minded. And I think I was very willing to be open-minded. I loved hip hop. My first ever listen to was Boogie Down Productions and KRS-One. Even though I've heard so many different songs before, vinyl I was buying, friends were buying vinyl. But my first song that ever got to me was Love's Gonna Get You. And that was, by KRS-One and BDP. I just loved the storytelling. I just, and at that time, I remember really wanting to get like two 10s in the trunk and an Alpine mixer and a Harman card. And I remember like going to school in high school, and I remember leaving early and getting my car and coming back down the fucking block with boom, 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 boom. You know that word, love? It's a very, and love's gonna get you. And I remember just like kind of like falling in love with it, because I was a kid, who was addicted to materialistic things and thought that glimmer, and growing up in Brooklyn, that glitter and that glamour was everything. And I lost a lot of my life for believing in that. I want to say that back then, I'm walking through the neighborhood. I have a boombox on my shoulder. This ain't no like kind of like electric boombox. It's like, and, listening to LL and believing and listening to Slick Rick tell these stories. Like Slick Rick is one of the greatest storytellers of our time, listening to him and just loving it. But then yet, like, some of the neighborhood kind of like maybe calling me a wigger, like telling me that I'm trying to be black. So I say to you, and I say to anybody who's listening to this, and we'll go through this. I'm listening to LL. I know LL. Now, I'm friends with LL. I mean, you could dream whatever you want to dream, but I feel like when you stay true to who you are, that never goes away.
Yep.
So those people looking at me crazy.
But that's, to me, a lot of the times that's a projection on themselves. Those are limited in beliefs.
But that's real stuff that happened. And that's real, it's sometimes I look and I'm like, damn, man, God really gave me a chance to like said, hey, we knew you were real about that shit. We're going to put you in this fucking, I don't want to curse like crazy on here, but
we're gonna put you in the circle. We're
gonna put you in
this opportunity.
in what you are, what you believe in, and be authentic about it, and yeah.
I mean, that's what I was about to say. It's the authenticity, right?
Yeah.
So then, were you kind of considered the different one in your family, or does everybody kind of have their own?
Yeah, I was. I guess so. Also because I was getting into a lot of trouble. Look, my sisters were older, and my mother and father, they trusted them like there was no tomorrow. And my sisters weren't the greatest people at certain times, meaning, they were going to clubs and going to this, and they had connections, and I was able to get in. So I was able to move around. So I was addicted to early graffiti.
So what age were you moving around like this?
13.
Okay.
12 years old, selling weed.
Okay.
I had a paper out at 10 and Daily News, and I'll never forget collecting it. And I used to have people give me $300, it was $3.65, give me 365 pennies. You know what I mean? Like, hey, here's a quarter for your tip. How are you? You know, and you would meet all these different people again. But I always wanted to, if we're gonna go to like where I'm trying to do something, I had a paper route. I bagged groceries. I wasn't always into criminal activities or things getting in trouble, but growing up, you could only do these things and you couldn't get anything else. Like I couldn't, I know it sounds crazy to say, right now there are so many opportunities for anybody to do things and never do something illegal.
Yep.
But back then, you know, there was a couple of things you could do, and then it was like, I was like, this was thrown in my face. Well, you want to get a pair of Jordans easier, or you want to get this? And I think I can admit and say I was fascinated by the glamour. I was fascinated by the glitter. And, you know, like even like I give an example. I love writing graffiti, but I was never in people. I never really made a name for myself. I wrote TEP, it was T-E-P, but I knew everybody. Like, and that's how I knew I belonged in a lot of places, because in a lot of places I know everybody. But back then I knew everybody. And I'll never forget, we're on 86th Street with a friend of mine. He wrote Route. And we're bombing this Foot Locker up on the top. The B train will come by. And next thing you know, it's like 14 cops. And they got me on the ground. They ain't never had my head. My head was like part of the fucking roof. I didn't even know what was going on. But they thought we were trying to rob the place. That was the first time I ever admitted to doing a crime. I was like, no, we're up here writing graffiti.
Let me clear this up.
Yeah, let me clear this up.
I wasn't trying to rob then.
I'm not trying to rob this place. But, you know, just being addicted to being outside, like really, you know, like, you know, we found a pedal boat, like a boat. And like we just, like, we found some oars and we were gone for like, Coast Guard came got us like a day later. Like just being adventurous, being Boy Scouts without the touching, you know, if that ever happened. Because I love the Boy Scouts, but I don't love when I hear about all these crazy things. So.
Love the ethos and the values that they may present.
I'm going to let you take it because it's your episode, but I want to say this because we're bouncing all over the place. After school was big for me. After school kept me out of trouble. It gave me a chance to play basketball. It gave me a chance to meet people. It gave me a chance to talk to different people. And it gave me a chance to know different people. And that's why I think no idle mind is important. And giving kids a chance to kind of, you know, like sometimes like I love my parents, but they raised kids one way in that generation. They had no patience. You know, they hit you, you expect to do this. Like another parent, but your kid gonna talk to you like that? You know, it's like kind of without even thinking. You know, I remember I grew up in a neighborhood where other parents were able to hit you.
Yeah.
You know, my next door neighbor gave me a crack. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, your father told me I could do that. Whoa.
Yeah. It's jarring.
You know, and you know, it's, but you realize, like I'll give an example. I was in 6th grade. I came home and I was, first time I was ever without my friends, I got jumped. And these kids, I was like, yo, I don't want no smoke. They're like, yo, they start coming out. I'm like, yo, I remember I fell, I hit my head. Somebody's like, yo, he cracked his head. I'm like 6 blocks. I'm running home. I'm holding. I was one of those kids. I had a lot of stitches, but I look. I'm like, holy shit. Like, then it really like got my jaw drawn. I run home. No one's home. I'm like bugging. My next door neighbor took me to the hospital. My next door neighbor like put a fucking rag on my head, took me to the hospital. I'm just saying that existed. You know, put me in the back of a car, I went to the hospital, and that's why I say a lot of my, you know, and I'll say this throughout the time, but money is still to be made, and I've done a lot of things. I never made big money. But I've been blessed with so many great, like, kind of backbones and people and that have, you know, that I've helped, that have helped me too. And that's generational. Yeah. You know, growing up, even in Brooklyn and Bay Parkway, I used to go to this place called More Fun. It was an arcade place. I used to get like $5. Some of my friends, they didn't have it. I'm like, yo, I got $5. We'll split this in half. I've always been like that. And in this, even getting older, you realize a lot of people will use you when you got a great heart and you're a good person. And I'm not saying I'm like a pushover. I was a crazy kid at certain times too, but when you do things from your heart, you never deny that. Yeah. You never.
And success isn't always about money.
Exactly. But
right?
but growing up in Brooklyn and growing up in the time I grew up with, that's how it was like defined.
Yeah.
So, and I always wanted, you know, like I saw somebody write, like, even when you talk about sneakers, like B-boys, they're exactly right. I wanted to be as fresh as that guy. I necessarily didn't want to be on the corner with no credit and everything in my mother's name, but I wanted to be fresh.
Yep.
You know, even like the mob guys, like Italian guy. I'm fascinated with Goodfellas. I've been able to do so many things with Sopranos. I don't think that's a way of life that I fascinate. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, a lot of these guys are like 60 years old, got no credit. You got everything in your fucking someone's name. You're standing on a corner, like talking about, hey, you seen Billy? Like, it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So even that alone, you know, it's like, you know, you want to be able to do more. Like what I'm trying to say is, when I look back to that kid you're talking about, writing graffiti, cutting class. I remember I used to go home early to go in the mailbox to try to get the cutting cards so my parents went and get them. When they got them, I was fucking ass whooping. Like that's the thing too. Like even people who know, like my mother, you know, I've been able to share my family socially.
Yeah.
You know, I meet people even. I'll be around and people like, yo, Premier Pete, man, I love your aunt. I'm like, oh man, thank you. Who the fuck is my aunt? But she's somebody who I've been sharing and is warm and heartfelt, and people appreciate that. People appreciate the small things. Even like nowadays, you'll see on TikTok or Instagram somebody who's like goofy or a little comedy or blows up, and people, even celebrities, are like, yo, I love this guy or I love this girl. She makes me laugh, or I like the way she cooks. It's the little things that people do that mean something, whether in your life, socially, or even visibly. So I say, listen, my aunt and my mother did my paper route. You know what I mean? Like later on, I had my paper route for years. Later on, I went to Florida. I went on vacation for a day or two. They did my paper route.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's love. That's support.
So how well did your drug dealing career go?
You know, I don't want to incriminate myself here, but you know, it's funny. I'll tell you this quick story, and then I'll tell you some maybe analytics. I think maybe I was like 15 years old, and it's funny when I think about socially, because I was living Instagram before Instagram. I mean, I was somebody, I knew this person, knew that person. So what I mean by that is, I met a friend of mine. He's like, I go, you could get rid of this weed for me. I'll give you like 10 pounds. So he gives me like 10 pounds. But remember, this is maybe 1990, maybe, you know, or early 90s. And he's like, look, I give them to you for like 2,000. You can sell them for 3,000 easy. Puts them in a garbage bag. I go pick them up, 10 pounds. I go to my house. I'm living with my parents. I go upstairs. I run upstairs. I put it in the closet. I get a page to my beeper. It's my mother, 911. She didn't even know how to use this thing. I call back. Hello, yeah, you son of a bitch. This house smells like weed. I threw it in the garbage. I said, no, you throw it in the garbage. He said, Mom, the mob, people involved in this. I don't give a shit. You know, So anyway, the funny thing is, my father gets on the line. My father, and it's funny, but this is a true story. My father's a sweet man, great guy. No ever trouble. I mean, he hated cursing growing up. My father's, if I want to give my life, it's like Bronx Tale. My father's Robert De Niro's the bus driver,
Yeah.
and I looked up to
Sonny.
Okay, but when I'm saying my father got on the phone, he's like, I put it in the shed. You got 24 hours to get it out. I was like, thank you, Dad. Because I don't think they understood. If I lost,
Well, it sounds like he did.
He did, but I don't think my mother understood.
Yeah.
But it would have been a big problem. But you know, my father, as straightforward as he was, I always felt like he was like human resources. Later on in life, I was able to have such a beautiful, and my father's going to be 81. Yeah. And to have him in my life every day is such a blessing. Yeah. But he, you know, he was definitely like, you know, you couldn't curse, you couldn't this, you couldn't that.
So how did the dynamic change in the house after that?
You mean to me? Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think thank you. I think, you know, you just push through that. You know, I think like, you know, I was very adamant of who I was and who I wanted to be. You know, I go back to even when you say drug dealing days. I mean, I'm not gonna go talk about everything, but I will say this. Even like I think about friends of mine who had amazing kind of businesses. And I remember telling them, like, yo, buy a Snapple route. Like, buy a fucking bread route. Buy a potato chip route. this shit's not gonna last forever.
Yep.
And they looked at me like I was fucking crazy. I'm talking about people in the 90s bringing in 50 grand a week, maybe. Looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
You know.
But I feel like we get into these things as like, not necessarily testing grounds, but they build character for us, right? It's like you try these different things to see and test where you're supposed to be. Like, what's my purpose? How do I really figure this out, right? And it's like, well, if I wanted these things, my parents can't give them to me, so I'm gonna figure out how to get them. I don't necessarily want to do this for a career.
Sure.
I'm not looking at it. It's just looking at, like, this is something that's gonna get me to where I wanna be now.
Sure.
But you're looking at those guys, you're going, nah, you need to get out of this. There's something beyond this.
Of course, of course.
So were you always looking past Coney Island? Like, what were you dreaming about then?
You know, it's funny you say that because the 2009 was sung by Mac Miller. And it's funny because I wouldn't think I would use a lyric. I mean, Mac is along with Mac Miller, and God bless. But I wouldn't think at my age now would we use something that was this pertaining. But in 2009, he goes, I was looking for what was looking for me. And when he said that, it really made me think. When I was young, I was just looking for what was looking for me. I had no idea. Like, I was trying to figure it out. I knew that one thing I look back that I was fascinated that I did in Brooklyn particularly is I hung out with so many people. Yep. And that was very rare because you gotta be from a crew, you're from this crew, you're from this crew, you're from this crew. I was friends with everybody. And you know, I knew this kid from school, I knew this kid, and I knew this, and I was able to go in those neighborhoods and go all over, you know, and that meant something to me, you know, and you know, the amount of friends and people I've been able to meet. But I would say, back then, no, I didn't know what I wanted, and I think it was a very tough kind of task to get to where I am today, because I think a lot of couldn't get out of my own way. You know, I wound up getting in trouble and, you know, going away, you know, and spending a couple of years in jail and then changing my life around. But before that, I think it took a lot of, you know, I went to programs when I was young. I couldn't get it right, but
what kind of programs? Like, your parents put you in them, or the law put you in them?
So just like kind of like, you know, you get in trouble. I was early. I think I was maybe 17 when I went into like my first program. It was like a group home, a residential task treatment, alternative street crime. But I took it serious. And even sitting here, and I'm not like one of those guys like me. Anybody who knows me, I care about a lot about people. I'm not a selfish guy. You know, I was there for 15 months. They offered me a job. I was like 18 years old. They offered me a junior counselor. Like, it was like maybe like 19,000 or something. And I was young, but then I had met someone. This goes to show you networking through my father. And he was like, bring you up into the city, you could work. It was like double that. And I was like, I wanted the money. I wanted to make money. I wanted to move out. I wanted to be on my own. I already spent a year and a half of my childhood in a fucking program because I made wrong choices. So I wanted to be out, and I took that job. But it always sits to me, and I've done work like that, but it always sits to me because I want to say this, therapists, particularly those type of like counseling, they don't get what they're worth. You know, a lot of those jobs are done from the heart, not you know, just 40, 50,000 salary, see, whatever it is. It's not like these, you know what I'm saying? Even if they're making 100 grand, it's those jobs are from the heart, you know, and you know, I found myself there. So I would say once I kind of got there, I always wanted to kind of like give back and help out and kind of try to align other people to find their passion, you know, in ways of sneakers.
Was that through the program?
Podcasting. No, meaning later on.
No, but I'm saying, did you get that feeling being in that program?
I did. I actually could have left and I didn't have to stay there anymore, and I stayed there. And that was actually admiring to the staff. And then I would take kids home on the weekend. You know, keep in mind, it's very tough.
To your home?
No, to their home.
Oh, I was like...
So it's like 3-4 months they're able to go home.
Yep.
You know, but I had kids in Park Hill. That's when I met a lot of Wu-Tang. Like, it's like even with Raekwon, I know him for a long time. Even a lot of these kids would go home in Park Hill. It's like you're supposed to be like a supervisor. Somebody lights up a joint, you think I'm going back, and they'll be like, hey, Yeah, he was smoking a joint this weekend. You know, may find myself missing. You know, I'm just saying. I find it. I found ways to instill change in them other than just being a rat.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That's not my style. But I was able to spend a lot of time, you know, with different kids, and I found the passion. And I guess, you know, it's funny that you asked me this because I start to think now, and even though I've helped build my career, I've been aligned and pushed with so many great people. Like, meaning that $5 and more fun, the arcade game, has been Bun, has been Dallas Penn, has been Combat Jack, has been so many people, you know, that I could keep on going on. But
I mean, it's the theme of authenticity. I think it's a theme of love, right? You came from a family that gave you love, gave you that support, right? A lot of the times when we get closed off and defensive is when we don't allow those connections. You know what I'm saying? And then as you start to give back, other doors start to open for you, other energy starts to come. So you finish the program, you're helping people out, but then how did the bid happen?
So it's funny you say that, and thanks for staying on track. That shows a true leader in a podcast incident. You know, I'm in the program, I graduate. I actually got an award. I'll never forget, because I just found the VHS tape, so I got to go to iMemories and send it and hopefully get it digitalized. But I just found, I got an award, they brought me up there, and the counselor, and this can actually help. Actually, you know what? Because this is who we are. The counselor I had was everything. At that time, I was into all these like Italian guys who were like mob guys or tough guys or just street kids or just, I didn't want, I don't know, I was rebellious. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I'll get into that maybe later. They put this guy on my caseload. He was my counselor, and he was fascinating for me. He was like a tough guy, but then like at night, he'd be like, hey, you, Steve, and Jamal, come down at 11 o'clock. I got pizza tonight. And we didn't have fucking pizza. So meaning a lot of these kids didn't have pizza. So I really opened up to him, and I valued that he treated me like a person. And to be honest with you too, I was, and I don't say this often too, but even in my family, you know, I go away and I couldn't get it right. A lot of my other family members, cousins had drug problems or whatever, but everybody held their head high. When I went away, I know they looked at my mother and father like, kind of like, you know, like maybe a little down on them. And then like when I came home, they were asking me to help their son, who's on cocaine, who's doing this, who's doing that. How did you did it? You did it. Like, you know, like it's like deodorant. It's not. It took like sacrifice, and I didn't even know what I was doing because I was so young. But I already had lived a life. I gotta tell people this. Like, I stopped doing drugs at 18. I started at like 13, and I could sit here. I went through the whole rave scene, meaning if you think about it, Storm. Back in the day, there was this thing called Storm Rave that Frankie Bones did. It was insane. And I went through all those days of, you know, having fun with those type of things, and to just everything, trying acid, trying this, trying that, to never doing anything ever again until a pandemic came. I said, I gotta smoke some weed or something. But what I'm saying is having that type of patience, you know, also, you know, I would see young kids come in there like 15 years old, 14 years old on heroin. You know, I would see like we used to have groups in there, like long groups. And there'll be kids in there like 6'5", that could knock your fucking block off, but they had hurt in them. Their father made their mother strip. They would bring like a boxing thing in the fucking room, and the counselors would hold out your father. He'd be like fucking beating the shit. I'll kill you, motherfucker. I was blown away. Then they would put on at the end, they would put on a song. Like, you know, what song do you like? Like, I actually remember a lot of them. I Want to Know What Love Is, Wind Beneath My Wings, If I Could by Regina Bell, Desperado. And they would put these songs on.
The counselors?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they would put them on, and then they would just like, come to you. So Mike, how was your father growing up with you? Did he hug you? You know, and it was just I never seen men. Because the point I'm trying to make is when I was in there, These kids were like, oh, I'm blood, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. Even when I was away, people were like, oh, I got knocked with 50,000, I got 4 Benzes, I got 5 houses, you got a cigarette? People just needed someone to talk to.
Yeah.
I didn't judge them on
Or listen.
Oh, listen.
Like somebody to listen to them is the biggest thing, right?
Yeah. But I want to say this, and then I'll give it back to you, because, you know, when we speak about a village, even buying a pair of sneakers, to buy a Jordan, if it was 60 or 100, my aunt gave me $5. My grandmother was so special to me, gave me $5. My paper route gave me 30. My mother gave me 10. My uncle gave me $3. People don't remember, you go there, you're wearing this Jordan, you're like, you're all meanwhile, it took fucking 14 people to get this thing. And that, I would say, is the epitome of my journey, meaning like having a good, like, not like a wishbone, like a backbone. You know, so moving over there, I wound up getting out, and I'm going back, I'm talking to all these places, I'm working in Wall Street, but I got into gambling. I think gambling at that time, it's so weird to think ESPN right now is like, Lakers and Knicks coming up tonight. The favorite is -3.
Right?
Kinda
Legal
weird.
gambling.
Very weird, because I grew up and I was addicted to a lot of neighborhood kids I seen ruin their lives. You know, their mother and father had money. Neighborhood bookie guy would be like, give him a $5,000 limit. Maybe if he didn't have so much money, he wouldn't have a limit. But it's fake money, so you're calling up, yeah, how much are the Jets? -2? All right, give me 2,000. You're not taking out 2,000.
Yeah.
So before you know it, you're down 2,000, you chase. And, you know, it made me go back into hustling or selling drugs to make some quick money. And I will not sit here and lie, because I never have. I wound up making the money back to pay for the bill, and I wound up still staying out there being greedy. And the funny thing is I got caught with like half of that money. I went to go pay the guy back. I called him. I said, yo, meet me over here. I said, I got half of it. He said, okay. I had like people meet me, and this last customer I went to go see, she must have called the cops or got busted. That's what happened. And, you know, that money was gone because they looked at it as drug money.
Yep.
Not saying it wasn't,
Yep.
but it doesn't matter.
I was paying off my gambling. That's different money.
I was like, hold on, you can't take this. You can't take this. And they were like, yeah, right. But anyway, you know, I say that is it put me away.
Yep.
But it put me away at a time where I thought I got my life together. You know, because when you're young, you don't really, you know what I'm saying? You don't really know. And at the end of the day, I will say this, my generation, the parents, sweet parents, but they were just figuring it out.
Yep.
You know, there's no booklet, there's no manual. You know, I look at it, my father realized that I was good with talking with people. Why the fuck didn't he put me into some class, or instead of saying, you know, put him on medicine or something, or Ritalin, or, you know, like that's what parents would do.
Yep.
We don't know, but maybe put him on this, or put them, if the guy talks about mechanics, throw him in a fucking mechanic shop.
Nah.
And no, now parents will. And it's beautiful to see. Yeah. But I always, you know, I want to say this. I'll bring you. So I get to jail, and my daughter is young, and I say to myself, "What the fuck did I do?" And this counselor.
Wait, so how old was your daughter when you went away?
About 3 years old.
Okay. And how old are you when you went away?
I think I'm gonna be home over 20 years next year. So I would say 22 years I'm home.
Okay.
24 years maybe.
All right. And how old were you then, though? You remember?
Yeah, about, how old were we? Holy shit, we were 48, yeah.
Okay.
25 maybe, 20.
Okay, so you had the kid when you were just 21, 22?
No, I had my daughter when I was 25, yeah. She's gonna be 25.
Okay. Oh, so you didn't go until you were 28?
Yes, 28, there we go.
Oh, shit.
28 years old, that's right, I spent my 30th birthday there, you're right. So, I don't know if this is going to flow or be edited, but I will say this. Sometimes in life, and you got to God bless this, you get in trouble for things that you didn't expect, and the things you're like, holy shit, I could have gotten in trouble for so many other things. That's how I feel about my life, meaning like I could have went away earlier for longer. Then I go up later for earlier, but I got the lesson. So going away, too, is a very, very tough thing. And the reason why I say that for is because most people don't realize they take their family with them. Men are selfish, particularly for that. you go away, you think you're fucking doing the bid. While your fucking mother's, thinking,
Yep.
where did my boy, oh my God, where is he? People, parents, wives, kids, even like I had to lie to my kid until I got home, later on in life, but come visit your daddy's, he's away. He's not, tell a kid 5 years old you're in jail. You're going to visit daddy's in the military. I was in a shock program, for a little, trying to figure out how to navigate through prison. Very, very tough task. I've had correction officers tell me, my man, you don't belong here. Even though being a thorough dude, even know how to move. I mean, listen, I've done a lot of things in my life. Moving your entire life at 3 in the morning through jails with a bag is a very weird thing. But I think it gives you a chance to learn how to be better. And I'm non-violent. I wasn't like a terrible guy committing murders. I think I was more terrible to myself. And in turn, I think you're terrible to your family. You put them through hell. Like, I think about it. I spent about almost 3 years in prison. 6 months of that almost in a box. Just because of getting a ticket, getting caught, not listening, having an argument with it could get you all these things. And you get into the box, you sometimes may get another ticket while you're in there. And I think that, when I think of myself, just a young neighborhood kid with a beautiful family, how the fuck did I get here,
Why am I here?
Even my parents, like, I think about it, I had my grandmother. My grandmother was 80 years old at the time. She would come 10 hours each way and visit me. She'd sit on a table like this, and when they walk by, she'd be like, those son of a bitches. I'm like, no, I'm the reason. I'm the reason I'm here. Like, I did this. Some of my friends, even my mother, she was like, hey, you should have never hung out with that kid, Brian. I'm like, I was influencing Brian. Like, I was telling him, a lot of mothers don't want to believe, but I was only telling her to the fact of like, but that's how special the support was. So the point I'm making is having people support you unconditionally, even when they don't understand it, even when they judge it, because there was a lot of stress through it too, being a fuck up and not figuring it out and feeling, embarrassing them. I never knew how to pay them back. When I got invited to jail after I came home, as soon as I came home, I hit the ground. I got into footwear. I was, back into things I loved, and I remember seeing kids like, come. I would see them in regular outside. It would be so dope, and then they'd be gone. They would get back into jail, get back into jail, and I was nervous. I would come home and I wouldn't want to mess with the curfew. I wouldn't want to do any of that. Anyway, they invited me to speak back in jail. It was one of the most humblest things. I took my parents. We took a flight there. They opened the fucking gates that I was in and treated me like I did something. It was such a weird, I don't know if anybody's listening to this in a jail and somebody that graduated or came home and that was impactful, invite them back. Not only for the people there, but for the staff, but for their own fucking psyche. It blew my mind. The same, look, at the end of the day, whoever you are, I've been in the jail, I'm not gonna say, people are like, move to the fucking gate, jerk off, okay? Before I put you through the fucking gate. What'd you say? You're just a fucking tax dollar. So regardless of whatever, color you are, this, that, you're gonna bring those things upon yourself if you're involved in those type of things. Point I'm trying to make though is, you're not treated, people take advantage of it. It's not a place where you're going to be treated. So going back in there and then rolling out the red carpet and having my parents escorted to the fucking thing. So anyway, I go and I speak, and this is early on of my career of learning. It's like 5,000-6,000 people. I'm looking at it, I'm like, holy shit. I'm the keynote speaker, so I go out there and I start talking about just how beautiful the food is outside. How beautiful life is outside. How beautiful, nothing in here is good. Nothing. And how many of you have kids? Like 3/4 of them raise their hand. And I'm like, the ice cream man's coming down the block today. And even though you left money You didn't leave yourself. So we went back, and the ASAC counselor, you get arrested for anything drugs, you got to go to counseling. This ASAC counselor, I'll never forget her, never. All these guys were in there talking shit. She said, Pete, your presence is more bigger than your present. I said, what do you mean, presence over presence? She says, that's what it is. And I remember I started talking about it then, and I came home with that idea that no matter what, my presence was going to be bigger than any present. Because also, I didn't know how to navigate the next steps. So I come home right away at that time and still, you got to mark off, you went to jail. I can't get a job. I'm trying to get a friend to give me a job. But I did have guys from the neighborhood that kind of took care of me. You know, I like to say this, actually. It's funny. It's funny to even drop this on you. But when I went away, you know, I was asked a bunch of things, and I was a stand-up dude. I came home, and people were nice to me for that. And some people weren't. I mean, some people forgot me.
They wrote you off.
Yeah, not even nothing. Like not even go give $100 to my kid's mom or anything. And I'm over here sad. That's why and I don't want to go deep into it. I'm going to give this back to you, but fuck the mafia, fuck the gangs. Because if you were fucking out, you're down and out, and they're not there for you, then fuck you.
Yep.
You put your life on the line, so go put your life on the line positively for your family, for yourself, so you could give back to your community. And anyway, I can never pay my parents back for all the turmoil I put them through. I used to get locked up. Cop used to be like, we got to call your parents. I'm like, do me a favor, listen. If you can put me in jail for one night, just don't call my parents. You know,
leave them out of this.
And they would, though. They would have to call them. But I can never pay them back. But having them there, speaking, you know, was just a highlight of my life. You know.
Yeah.
So.
I was funny because I was going to ask you where you got that saying from. So would that be the greatest gift you got from that bid?
It was because it actually, you know, it's funny, and you know, I want to sit here and act like a big shot, but I've been able to push that thing all over the world.
Yeah.
Like meaning as a way of life.
Yeah.
I never even made money on it. Like I never tried. At one point in time, I was going to do like a nonprofit, but I didn't have the time.
Yeah.
But presence over presence is something that's been pushed. I get people who message me like, "Yo, I live that lifestyle. It's helped me." I just wanted to explain to people because when I came home, I couldn't get a job. I wound up getting anything I could get just to get off parole, and I was separated from my, you know, as a separated father. I didn't know what to do. You know, if we're talking about parenting, like as a man, like I didn't know what to do. I got divorced. Me and her mother, you know, that's another thing. I was married for, you know, like 2 years. I grew up in a family, everybody's married 25, 30, 40, 50
Whole
years.
life.
I felt like a failure, but we just grew apart. But I'm being honest with you, to any separated single dad out there or single parent, I went and picked up my daughter that Friday. It was amazing. And then Sunday, I dropped her off. I had tears in my eyes as I drove away because I didn't know how to navigate this. You know, I'm working. I'm trying to maybe do I have, you know, make some money. I'm trying to get off parole. Oh wait, you want to try to get some love for yourself? Like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was trying to figure it out. That's when I came up with, you know, Tuesdays just go there for pizza. Or ice cream on Thursday. That's what presence over presence. Like your presence is the greatest gift you could ever give anybody, not just a kid, right? You know, and like I bought her 1,000 Barbie dolls. Like she don't remember that. She remembers us going to the movies every Friday that we did, you know, and little things like that mean something. And to be honest with you, with no manual, no booklet on how to be a parent, presence over presence helped me navigate.
Nah, I mean, it's such a beautiful statement, you know what I'm saying, and reminder. And I think that's the beautiful thing is when we find these spaces to give without expectation of getting anything back, right? Like most people will be like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna create a business out of it, and we're gonna make money off it, then we're gonna do this.
Sure.
But I think a lot of the times those things, when we just do those through love and just express them, they come back in different ways, right? And you see now all the opportunities and everything else.
Yeah, and also just people being able to have more support in their life. You know, when I was coming up, my friends were going to clubs, I was changing diapers. I'll never forget, it's like the third time I got my daughter, I went to go change a diaper, and she had blue poop. I'm like, holy shit. I called my mother. I'm like, Mom, what the hell? You know, I was going crazy, and she was, because I was like, imagine me, you know, we were just getting divorced. I'm like, you know, I just felt like it was another thing I was going to have to hear. Like, what did I do? I don't know what happened. Turns out she ate a crayon. And, but I was losing my mind. But to have my mother was everything. I mean, I sit here and I say this. We spoke about money before. And people do, you know, people do like flash and this, that. I can never, ever put a money on the amount of support that like they have like shown up, just showing up, like not even understanding, but just showing up. You know, it's been groundbreaking for me to have. Like my mother's 80 years old. My aunt is a twin. She never got married, so she's been like a second mother. These people, like I said, did my paper route. They came to jail to see me. They had
unconditional love.
You know, they had combat. Everybody at the house cooking, like meaning, my friends were their friends. Their friends were my friends. They have that type of love, and I think that I'm glad I'm still able to have that. But anyway, moving over from jail, yeah, you take it.
Well, when you got out, right, and you're doing all these things, were you Premium Pete already?
Yeah. So I think like
when did Premium come about?
So Premium was always, when you think about Air Forces and you think about Premium Air Force One. And I remember I was always buying all these Air Forces and all these Air Forces. So Premium would come from that, you know, like Premium and with the sneaker. Because you think about like a lot of people see Nike Air Force, but there was Premium Air Force. So Premium to me was always an extra level. And the crazy thing is later on I wanted to change it. I was thinking about like changing it. And you know, you'll hear people's nicknames or different names, even artists. You know, what was your first name? You know, and I'll never forget. I was at this early sneaker show. Maybe it could have been a Dunk Exchange. I think about how many years ago. And this guy comes up to me. He's like, Premium Pete, right? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, what a fucking name. And I'm like, this guy like seems more passionate about it than me. But the way he said it was like, you know. And if I have more time, I mean, think about Premium. You could do everything Premium. Premium this, Premium that. There's so many levels. I see Premium lotion, Premium that. The life of Premium could be so many ways. But yeah, I would say came from sneakers, you know.
But I mean, when did you get that though? When did you start?
Early, I would say early, like probably before I went away, I would say my sneaker days of like kind of like more, because I was more of a Jordan head. I'd probably say late 90s, maybe late 90s.
Okay. And then when did you start really getting into the world, and how did you make that kind of change from you did the bid and now I'm getting into the sneaker space?
You know, it's funny because I've always been into sneakers, meaning, you know, Sneaker Corner was on Avenue I, you know, just going into the city, going to different spots that we had. You know, there's like a Carhartt spot that we had. Like there's always different spots. We didn't drink no wine in this episode. Spots that we had found out about that people, like, you know, I grew up where people wouldn't like tell too much about it because then people will fuck it up. Yeah. You know,
like I remember when I first moved out here finding out about like, was it
Jew-Man?
Well, Jew-Man for sure, but even like on the boot side, the
David Z?
Field and Trail, what is it called? Field and Trail or something, like the one downtown. It was like in the financial district or whatever.
With the boots?
Yeah.
What the fuck was the name of that part?
It was like Field and Trail or Trail or something like that. It was like.
Well, we used to always go.
But yeah, but nobody. Yeah, Tom, Dick, and Harry's, Dave's.
Oh my God.
Right. Like, you know, so there's a bunch of those. Or then Udi had training camps.
Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry. It was before that. It was Broadway sneakers. Yeah. Sorry, Broadway sneakers.
But I would say going back to, and then bringing you to sneakers, I would say, you know, I was always into sneakers. Always into Jordans. Always into, you know, even Takinis. I see, you know, how they're back out. I remember like Central Sports. There was this place. They used to hold me down. Like meaning like they wouldn't give it to other people. You know, it comes from the days of like, you know, even having friends that would go to the bar and buy the bar out.
Yep.
Like, you know, no more champagne. You know, I didn't do that. I'm saying I would have friends that would do that, and you would live in that lifestyle. And I would think about all these stores, and I was fascinated by them. So one of my friends later on wanted to open a sneaker store. But boutiques are like barbershops. People hang out. You know, people think they're doing you a favor. You know, I used to have people tell me when we were in retail, they were like, holiday Jordans. Yeah, I'm just calling. I'm trying to support you. Like, oh, these Jordans are walk off the shelf. I don't need you to buy them. You know, meaning boutique sneaker shops are very tough. And I salute anybody who's doing them because it takes a lot of time.
Yep.
You know, to build them and you know, you got a Nike bill coming in, Foot Locker got the same stuff you have, half off, middle of the month already. It's a tough business, you know, and so anyway, getting into that, I was able to get into that, and without even taking long to explain this, we were downtown Brooklyn, which was the epicenter where Manny was, and
Yep.
you know, there was a place called Quick Strike. There was so many boutique stores down in Fulton Street.
Yep.
Known for early sneakers, known for early releases, so people will come and see us. And I made a bunch of clientele down there. I already knew certain people. And I would say, like, that was a beautiful time to really build with so many people. And then we moved into the city, and you know, it was prime location, and I started bringing all the people I knew, you know, and then the city had people it knew already, meaning like, Tom Cruise would walk in without even knowing, like, oh, what's this going on here? You know what I mean? He was down the street in Baltazar. But then I was able to build, you know, you were talking about Drake, you know, Drake, Tiana Taylor, I know her since she was young. She brought Drake to me. I had no idea who he was. She was like, oh, you ever heard of Drake? He's nasty, he's gonna come out, he's a rapper. I'm like, no, because I knew Tiana's mother. Anyway, I started to meet all these people.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to give you this one quick story. But you take. I gotta give you that back this because you don't want to lose this. But I don't want to take forever to tell you a story. But you go.
Huh?
Sure.
No, but I'm saying just keep going with the because what I'm trying to get this that transition of again like you made a hell of a leap, right?
So,
going for it, and it wasn't but it wasn't overnight, right?
No.
And you know it wasn't always about money. You've always been somebody who's given back in your own way, right? You've always been that. You've always, you know, I'm not going to say you've shorted yourself, but you've always, I feel like, put other people ahead of you, right? And so I'm very curious on that, just that whole transition, how you go from prison to the retail to, because I met you as Premium Pete in the sneaker space, right? Everybody already knew who you were.
Yeah, and you were already doing your thing, and
right?
and again, just appear early peer before we became friends to know, respect, admire each other. Even the things you were doing, you know, with LTD as an agency, not easy, ahead of its time, you know, and having a space like that for creatives is special. That's why I guess I could always say I care about creatives because I am one. I always wanted to help a creative out with, instead of getting a net 90, try to help them get early or show them how to invoice. Or I even been around people who I feel like already do what they do and help them propel, right? You know, make them see maybe what they're not seeing in them. But I think it's also a gift and a curse because I've learned as I got older that I see things in people they may not see in themselves, and then I want that to happen for them, and then I want to get into an argument with them sometimes. Yeah. And I learned to let people be who they are. Yeah. But I learned to let them know who I think they are. Like even like, I'll say this even publicly, not crazy, but even like a couple of months ago, like Matt Halfhill, who owns Nice Kicks, I seen he was on this Tubi show, and the show Tubi, whatever. I mean, every show could be better, but it was nice. And what they did on the documentary, my friend Scrams was in it. And the point I'm trying to make is, I look at what he was doing, and I was like, wow, he's really handling himself well. So I'm like, and then he did something again. He was like, the way he was talking, he was explaining sneaker culture. I was like, wow. So the next day I text him. I'm like, yo, Matt. I'm like, you got a second? He's like, oh, I'm a little busy. What's up? What do you need? I'm like, I don't need nothing. I'm like, you got a second? I'm like, give me a call. He's like, okay, of course. Later on, he called me. He's like, what's going on? Premium P, how's everything? I'm like, I'm good. He's like, you need me anything? I'm like, yeah, I just want to tell you, man. I think you have what it takes to talk like on TV, man. I think I was fascinated by what you were doing, the way you were saying this. He was fucking blown away. He didn't expect that because most people, even like Steve O'Bell, I love Steve. I remember early when we met each other, I was calling him. He's like, what do you want, Pete? What do you need? I'm busy. I got to run. I was like, oh, I'm just calling to send you blessings. He's like, what? What? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm just calling to send blessings. He's like, yo, you a real one. I love you. I'll call you later. What I'm saying is people don't do that enough.
No.
And you know, I'm not like no preacher or whatever, but I want to get back to, because we were talking and then I think we stopped for a second, but we were talking about retail.
We're talking about your retail store.
And being a part of that, and the store was called Premium Laces, but I didn't name it that. But what I'm saying is the store being named that also kind of helped me, but I was able to bring my friends and bring people I met there. You know, one thing I want to tell you is this, and anybody listening can understand this. Michael Douglas comes in, he's an actor, whether you know him or not, you know, meaning people listening or watching. He comes in and he wants a What the Dunk sneaker. I have like 2 pairs. At the time, they're very limited, you know, maybe they're probably way more expensive now, but they were like $2,000.
Yeah.
So, and not saying Michael Douglas can't afford this, but as soon as he comes in, he goes, yeah, I want these. So I look at him with just, you know, a broker. What size? And he goes, you know, he said the size. I go, I don't have that. Well, how do I get them? And I was like, what size do you need? He goes, well, he said something about his son or his nephew, whatever. I says, and I knew who he was right away. And I said, I could probably get him for you. He goes, put your number in my phone. And I was like, okay. Now, mind you, being a Brooklyn guy, one thing I hate is that I'm not always starstruck. And I'm not saying Michael Douglas was going to make me this, but it's funny how sometimes, and this ain't only Brooklyn, there's a lot of people, but whoever feels this way, it's like, I'm like, you know, like when you don't get starstruck, it's a beautiful thing because you're able to be who you are. Yeah. Don't ever forget you can add value too. That's the thing. A lot of people, like kids I grew up in a neighborhood with, to the kids I grew up with my second half in life, they don't get it. People, they're asking me, why would Styles P be friends with you? What? What do you mean? Like, you got to add value, right? Yeah. You are who you are. Are you a platform? Are you a person? Are you just good people? But I think, like, you know, learning even that, learning how to, like, explain that. But I don't want to lose the train of thought. What was I was explaining?
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. So Michael Douglas says, yeah, I need this size. So he gives me his number. So that right there and then, even though I've been around, I've been a neighborhood kid, I've been someone who told you I hung out in different neighborhoods, which wasn't really allowed. Right there and then, I said to myself, holy shit, I'm a fucking value to this guy. I got on the horn, I got this fucking size. The next day I brought it to him. I'll never forget, like he came over, this is my guy. He's telling his fucking family. I never took a video, I never took anything. At this time, it wasn't really,
we weren't thinking about that.
And you know, I was able to build on that. You know, Christian Slater, Drake, anybody you could think of, Kelly Ripa, Wayne Brady, Tom Cruise, keep on going and going.
So you just became the plug.
Yeah, at a time, and I want to say this. When I think about moving on later on, I had no idea what I was going to do, and I think it may have been 2010. I want to explain this. 2010, maybe been that 2009. Wound up closing down. I didn't know what I was going to do. I wanted to meet in Dallas, Penn, like 2 years before that. In 2010, I took about 6 months and I started this site called SneakerTube. And SneakerTube, it's funny because it was only 15 years ago, and it was a video website about sneakers, and it was so much money. Like, meaning it cost me so much money to make. And now I can make 4 phone calls. I could probably get, I could raise money for it, and we could be a company, with a small one. And it's way cheaper with the video and the hosting and stuff. But it was never to compete with YouTube. It was only to give people a chance to showcase, you know, their sneakers, the channels, with Nike, Adidas, whatever. So anyway, I made that. Dallas, Penn. Think about this. I'm actually going to bring you forward and backwards. I had it for about 4 years, and then I shut it down. Somebody got married on it. Like I had DMs, and like before it was called DM, but it was a message. You could make your own page, your own profile, featured videos. And it was all over. I made a little bit of money, nothing crazy. When I look at it, 4 years, I never really made anything out of it. But Dallas Penn calls me in 2010 and says, Pete, why don't you come out to the Combat Jack show and push this sneaker tube? Come up here, just talk about it. I was like, all right. He's like, hey, this guy Reggie may not know about sneakers, but talk about it. So I was like, all right. So I come up there. And for those who know my story, I never fucking left. And I wound up becoming the co-host, and I mean, we made history, and it was a brotherhood of people, A. King, and Ben Amin, and Matt Raz, and Chris Morrow, and Jonathan Menner, and I could keep on going on, but what I'm saying is, just speaking as a creative, I could be like, oh, Sneaker Tube never did what it was supposed to do for me. Well, what was it supposed to do? It was a bridge that brought me there.
Mm-hmm.
And I never left, and what we built, and how special that moment was, you know, that we were able to do that. Look, I look at it this way. I was sneakers and podcasting. I was both in them where people laughed at them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when me and Combat went out one time, there was a group of people for lunch, and people, you know, I'm a CEO, I'm a CFO, I'm a director. And he came around to us. I thought he was going to say lawyer. And he goes, oh, we're podcasters. And they were like,
what's
oh,
that?
Oh, that's cute. And I was like, why wouldn't he say he's a lawyer?
Yeah.
Because, you know what I mean? Because people, no matter how you look at, oh, I'm a lawyer. It's like, you understand, prestigious.
Yep.
But he looked at it like, and he let it, that's why I forever keep that man's name alive, because he believed in something when very few people didn't believe in it. And he believed in it to a fact of passion. And he believed in it after he lived a career of lawyer, you know, that I'm sure it wasn't as easy as people think it is, meaning him creating something, him maybe being told, what the fuck are you doing? Him maybe being told, like, Con Ed Bill is here. I don't know. I'm just thinking, because he sacrificed a lot, and I don't think many people realize that. But, you know, I'm glad that he is respected for that. But yeah. So
I mean, but that belief is something we're not taught, right? That's something we learn on our own. It's very rare that we're taught that. And that belief creates this audacity to do something new, because I just believe, I know I'm going to do this. And a lot of the times, that first, it's tough, right? To put yourself out there like that. But now you look back, who wouldn't want that title?
Sure, very tough.
Who wouldn't want to be known as the person who started podcasting in this world, especially for hip hop?
Well,
right?
just
podcasting in general.
Just to have a hand, just to have a voice in something at a time that was special too. Like, you know, I think we live in a time and day where people want to be known.
Yeah.
You know, like even the people that I knew that did so many things that didn't care to be known now, like, yo, I want to fucking be known. And I'm like, okay. But I think like what I find pleasure in is being something for people. Like, meaning even the Life Gems episodes that I did later on after Premium Pete Show, you know, I've had people hit me like, yo, that fucking put some fucking energy in my, and I want to be that, because I know when I was coming up, I didn't know about invoicing. It was very hard. I didn't want to blow people out of the water. And, you know, I would tell them 15,000, they'd tell me 10. I really wanted 20. You know, they'd bring me down to 5. I didn't have a manual. I didn't have a booklet. I had friends. I had mentors, but not like I've been to other people.
Right. But also, I feel like that's everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And
we are what we didn't have.
Right? And we got to create that for ourselves, or we have to just believe in ourselves to a point where it's like, there's nothing going to stop me. I'm going to keep doing this. And then, again, things just start to kind of happen. But you also said something before that was important, the bridges, right? Like, I think it's so important to be that bridge, right? And to bridge those gaps and to help people, because that's part of showing the vulnerability and showing who we really are. It creates that bridge, because a lot of times people are isolated and they feel like they got water around them, they're in a moat, they can't get it to where they really want to be, you know? But it takes that belief in who you are, and it also takes other people around you to give you opportunity. And like you said, like SneakerTube, you could have been like, it didn't work, it wasn't successful like I thought it was be, the vision didn't happen, but it got you to where you were supposed to be, right? And then now I feel like you're happier and feel like you're in the place that you really want to be more than anything else. I mean, you've even got to a point of acting, which is...
Just meeting people. I mean, just being yourself, you know. Again, you know this. I mean, you've been able to create so many things from just being yourself. And, you know, I think even that is just fascinating. You know, I will say this, you have to believe in yourself. And I'm not sitting here sounding like I fucking made it. But I fight every day to, you know, be the best version of myself, be the best parent, be the best person. I look back, even like speaking to you about jail, I look back, I don't even know that kid.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why I made some of those choices. I took too long to grow up, but I'm thankful, you know.
But would you be here?
Would
you be where you're at right now?
No, you're right. Right? You're right. They all led me to here. You know, I think about like where my heart is, you know, and I don't know if I think I told you this, but after, you know, I have 2 older sisters and I'm the younger, but my mother couldn't have any more kids, and she became a foster mother. And, so I grew up and we had like kids come in and out of the house, and it wasn't for money. Like my mother would wind up putting more money in, for clothes. And one thing I will say about my family, even though like we didn't have a ton of money and we didn't buy a ton of houses, like we didn't have, I see some of these families, these fathers, they bought houses in the 80s and 90s and they're fucking $10 million. My family's not like that. But one thing about them is if somebody got a fucking promotion or a raise in their job, there was 30 people on a Tuesday with a Carvel cake and coffee. And that to me is fucking success. And that to me is like people getting behind you and believing in you and showing up for you. And as you get older, you want to be happy of who this younger person is.
Yep.
Like sometimes I'm not. Like I'm just being honest. Like sometimes I have to be real with that. Like, but I think you just try to work to be a better version of yourself.
I mean, we're human.
Yeah.
Right? We got emotions, shit changes, we got challenges, we got life happens. So with that, how do you stay level-headed? Do you have practices, techniques? Do you do anything like?
I mean, listen, taking care of yourself is one of the, fondest things you could do. And sometimes we don't do it enough. Man, woman, people, it's always like, I feel like this lifestyle, it doesn't give you a warning until it sits you down into a hospital bed of how fast you're moving. We all want to make it, we all want to pay a bill, we all want to get the things that we didn't get when we were younger, but at what cost,
Yeah.
And I think it's just important to realize what's important to you and how you could disconnect from that, I love, really just disconnecting some days and just like kind of taking a walk. Palm trees are, my goal is I got to go palm tree shopping. I have a couple of goals, and I love palm trees.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, no, I want to. Like I started looking into it, and it's like fascinating, man. Like the double one is like 1,600, like or a wishbone one is 850. I know it sounds like I'm talking like I got money, but it's I don't even have the house for it yet. I got to put it in a climate area. Like I want maybe in Florida, I'll grab something in a couple of years because I'm getting tired of the cold, meaning back and forth. But what I'm saying is I always dreamed of palm trees because palm trees, when I was young, my mother sent me to Florida when I was 15. I got caught in a stolen car. And my uncle, I'll never forget, there was so many palm trees on the block. It was like fucking beautiful. And I grew up on a block where it was so, like, everybody knew there's a crackhead on the corner, this one here, this one. I was crazy. And I'll never forget, I come to the airport and he goes, let's go for lunch. And he left his garage open and I'm coming out and I'm like, Uncle Junior, I'm like, you left your garage open. He's like, don't worry about it. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I felt like that was paradise. So I always look at palm trees, and people who know me know I say this, and I try to get underneath them as much as possible. As weird as that sounds.
I mean, goals. Why not?
And
if that's your happiness.
I try to get underneath them. I really love, Caribbean places like that to get underneath palm trees. But I would say taking 10 minutes a day in complete silence has really helped my life. I've been working to get up to 15. Some days it's tougher than others, And then I think just life, for anybody listening, watching, life gets tough, man. I lost a lot of people in my life, and that has been, I'm not gonna lie to you, it has been very, very hard for me.
I mean, those aren't small people either, as far as like inspiration, as far as guidance, as far as like just being there. Those are a couple of rocks.
I mean, I look for comfortability in my friends. Them feeling comfortable, me feeling comfortable. I work towards that. I think about like whether you like Dallas Penn or not, whether you know Dallas Penn or not meaning you. I'm talking about people. I had a real young boy relationship, meaning childhood sleepover, break night friendship with him. So, when you lose people who believe in you, it's tough. When you lose people who saw more in you than you see in yourself, it's tough. I just said I do that for people.
Yeah.
These are the people who did it for me.
Yeah.
You know, even I watched a video of combat in Dallas. I got to put it out there. I don't share. I'm weird. I'm like, I put things out there, but I'm not a kid who's like kind of look. You know what I mean? Like, it's some of those things aren't for everybody. But I remember like combat saying when he knew that I was like this kid's ride or die. Like, I mean, he was like, there's no quite like when even hearing that, you know, was so special because I used to come there with snacks and all I wanted for them was to win.
Yeah.
And you know, who would have known that my voice is like, even now, like, you know, 20, like all these years later of doing podcasts, doing this, like I get people messaging me, oh, I love your voice. Like, I'm like, what? That's why when I sit down with people over the years, like people who do like radio, and this is something for even you, ask them, like, yo, you like your voice? You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Listeners who love people's voice, I listen to them every day. These people have been like, I don't know if my voice is that good. You know, but you know, when you lose people, that's another thing. I say this, you don't prepare. You know, it's like everybody here that grew up, like it's not like your parents sat you down and like put you to a grief class.
Yeah.
Or put you through, you know, or put you through a homeowner class or building your credit, which I would like to see more people do, and learn that early. Find that being sexy. Find that as sexy as, you know.
I mean, our relationship with death should be part of growing up, you know, and understanding. As soon as you're born, you're on your way to that, you know, and maybe that helps people live a different way, because it's gonna happen. We just don't know when.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's weird. It's weird when you say that too, and not to sound, but everybody got a ticker on their head. Nobody knows when they're going. If you did know that, you probably would work harder or less. Mostly harder. Mostly harder. You know, but you know, it's like, again, friends, having good people around you. That's another thing too. Like before I mentioned, I have childhood friends. Like that's one thing about my family. They got friends 50, 60 years. Some of the people, I thought they were my real aunts. You know, they're just friends. I don't be afraid, and this ain't only for you. Don't be afraid to meet people later on in life. I have met people later on in life that have become better friends than people I grew up with. Fucking amazing people. Amazing people. People like Dallas Penn that have opened up so many doors for me. People like Combat. People like Bun.
Bun, yeah.
Who it's weird. You're in this like industry where people think and they hear these names and they think, oh yeah. Nah. I'm talking about people who never make you feel.
Yep.
Okay? Like they switched up on you.
Yep.
Never make them feel like they're more important than you. Like that you're not more important, that you're not seen, that you're not heard, that your energy doesn't go unnoticed. And taking the time to double back on that or triple back. You know, it's a weird industry. I've been around people, you hang out with people and you're in one room and everybody says goodnight. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, thank God we got rid of that guy. And I'm like, what the fuck?
It's funny, I'm thinking about
to
it.
have people not switch up on you is a beautiful thing.
That's funny, I'm thinking about it now. It's like, yo, there's Dallas, Reggie, Bun, Clark. I mean, we all have them, and you and I both have them in common. Like, we're great friends with all of them. And it's wild to think of just how much they've been able to inspire others by just being them, right? It's so beautiful. Like, I always looked at Bun, like, you know, we met when I was at the Source. You know, I think it was a photo shoot and he needed trees or something, and who else are they gonna call, right? But it was never like, oh, nah, this rapper and this guy, it was just, we just became friends, like, and it was just two people, you know? And I think that is the beauty, is when you have to actually meet the people. Like, you know, they always tell you don't meet your, what is it?
Your heroes.
Your heroes, right? So, like, you know,
sometimes that's true.
You know, but it's like, I've had that opportunity, like, gratefully, to meet so many people that I've held up here since I was a kid that have just become friends, regardless of stature or whatever else they do. It's just like, no, we call, we check in, and I had that with all of them. Anytime Dallas saw you, he made you laugh. He asked how you was doing, right? It didn't matter where. Like, last time I ran into him one time at fucking, where were we at? The dumpling spot. And man, Joe Shanghai, and he just sat with me, and he was there with his lady, he just sat with me. I forget who I was with, and we just talked it up. He gave me a couple presents and things, and he was writing all this stuff. And I got to read that, and it's just like, you think back, and it's just, man, these people just get to be themselves.
Man, I have not looked at it like the way you put it. That was special, the way you just put it, because I'll be honest with you, you're right. People like Clark, I always look for his approval. And when I got it, I loved it. And I never looked back. Yeah. Like as a Brooklyn guy, I remember when he was when he would give me premium watch what Premium Pete do, he was excited. And when he seen me doing my own thing, I looked at Clark like I wanted his approval. Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody bigger in a sense. When I think of Brooklyn, I don't think anybody bigger than say Spike Lee or Clark Kent. Yeah. But more so just a guy who had that same sentiment. Even when you think about Clark and Bun, and you think about Dallas and Combat, and I hate to put Bun in the category with people who pass away, but people who I've seen personally get free things and buy them. Support people behind their back. And it meant the world to them. Even like Clark, you know how many people I met that like, yo, that's my uncle. I was like, I know Clark a long time, right? Yeah. And they're like, yeah. You're like, oh, that's my uncle. I'm like, okay. Yeah. But also, he would tell people, like this is my nephew or whatever, and they would believe it to a point where it's real. And I think that it just goes back to saying having someone believe in you. When you think about it, how many messages I got from people about Dallas, that things he did, I didn't even know some of these things. He could, even with Combat, taking the time to talk to people. So what I'm saying is your legacy and my legacy, what I want is that same thing. And when I go, and there's a time I go, that at least people know that I wasn't a selfish person, that I loved me, but I also love others around me. And people, I'll be honest with you, without people like them, I wouldn't be here today. Without even people like Bun, there have been days where, dealing with just loss and feelings, where I would feel very depressed. And he would come knocking. Friends like that, man, where, they come knocking. What are you doing? I'm coming to New York tomorrow. Let's go. We're going out to eat. And I'm like, oh, this fucking guy doesn't even realize. I would tell him, but, and I think, there's something special about having that and being pure for that and showing up for that. And I do want to say loyalty like that, respect and admiration for that. People are always chasing a bag. Friends are a bag. Friends will help you get money. I remember one time my son was with Bun, and he had this. We were going to a Yankee game, and he had this thing on his iPad, and where he's asking questions. And we drove there, we got driven there, and he's asking the whole way there. Hey, Uncle Bun. Would you rather have $5 million or 5 friends? And he's like, 5 friends, because 5 friends will get you more than $5 million. But just even having that care, I don't just the care. We talk about hip hop or just life or family, even like Ice-T. This don't get spoken about. Solid dude. Even me, I've done a bunch of things with him. I remember, I never asked him for anything. I remember he saw my daughter at the table I brought her. He's like, yo, that's your daughter, right? He's like, yo, have a sit here. I remember he dropped game on her for an hour. I didn't take a photo, a video, anything. He was like, yo, you're going to meet this guy, you're going to tell him he a sucker then. You're going to tell this person, you know what I mean? I would go back every couple of minutes to hear what he was saying. I was like, it was a family thing, so I know he wasn't saying some crazy stuff, but what I'm saying is, just to have that, it means the world to me. It's not about Ice-T. No. It's just about people, so,
I look at it, though, as that's the reciprocation of what you give.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So those people kind of come around you, surround. But it also shows you who you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to live, and the joy you can bring to people by being that. You know what I'm saying?
Even your show, even you, what you have done, keep in mind, and even what you're doing, is the same thing I'm talking about. Later on in life, as you continue to build your catalog, you've done many things. I'm just speaking about this. As you build your catalog, people appreciate it for people who spoke their journey. Yeah. It's not like we came in here to talk about fucking, A minor, no, not that there's something wrong with it, but I'm just saying we're not talking about
the same old things that everybody.
Yeah, I'm saying, I think people appreciate that. And then, because at the end of the day, like even me, like, I'm coming here, yeah, it's a Premium Pete episode, but fuck Premium Pete. Hear what I'm trying to say? Like, if someone got something out of it, it's not about who he is or what he's done. What is he? Even if you don't know, like I look at this day and age, a lot of people don't know people. I see people who got podcasts for 2 years, they think they're famous. Let me explain something to you. If somebody doesn't know you, that's okay.
Yeah.
How can they know you? Continue working, continue building in different fields, continue meeting different people. And then you'll be introduced. Like, for instance, if I don't know somebody, I know you, you're going to introduce. I remember one time even with, what's his name, Kenny Burns, the way you said, how you never, both of you never met. And I respect his journey, we never met. But what I'm saying is that happens.
Yep.
Today, some people are like, oh, you don't know who the fuck I am?
But that's the ego. That's this day and age, this digital age. That's all that, right? But I think, we'll use, since you're here, the good fellas, right?
Yeah.
And being just good, open heart, vulnerable, authentic. To me, that's a good fella, right?
You mentioned, and I'm gonna say a long episode to figure out how you handle it. But I will say this: you mentioned something earlier, and I'll give. I'm trying to come back to you every time. You mentioned about acting. We talk about friends. We talk about people. We talk about podcasts. We talk about doing right things. Armand Desante, he's an actor. He's been around for 5 decades. He's been in Mambo Kings, Gotti, American Gangster, whatever. I sit down with him 6 years ago. I had a passionate episode. I mean, we know each other. I didn't know him at the time, but I was passionate. Just like if I didn't know you, I'd feel like, yo, fucking Mike is passionate. Even though I feel that way now, but not if we didn't know each other. So I put the episode out. He calls me like a month later. I get a phone call. Where's that phone? I got to give a good video here. So he says, he called, oh, well. I said, yeah. He goes, hey, Pete, I'm watching this interview you did with me. It's fabulous. And I'm like, oh, thank you. He goes, let me ask you something. If I had a part in a movie for you, would you be interested in it? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'd be interested. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Contacts in your phone. Don't show me, you know what I mean? That's everything. Every single thing. Point I'm making is I'm respected to cultures. What I mean by that is I'm not going to just step in and think I'm an actor. It takes time and respect and admiration. I did like 4 things already. 3 are coming out. I did 1 that came out already. And 1 some more. And I had a pretty good part. But the point I'm making is relationships. He came on the podcast. We just had a real good convo. He saw something, right? Keep the water running.
But being that bridge, I think, even comes before the relationship, right?
True.
Having that ability where you're open enough, and that's what I'm talking about, the bridge. The bridge to me is the heart.
Yep.
Right? And you're able to get there. So, did you ever want to be an actor? Was that up there with?
I'll be honest with you, I feel like I've been acting all my life. And I don't mean that in a character way, like I'm faking, but meaning like, even like, I'll be honest with you, Mike, even you, we're at a point in time where I could just snap on like that. Like meaning, it's kind of weird. Like even I hang out with some of my childhood friends, they're like, what are you doing? Where I could just get up and be like, even right now, if you told me, I could be like, just
build that, be that character.
Be that character. And I think when you get lost in that is what helps you find that. And I think that's what I'm learning. Because at the end of the day, you can love yourself. I'm not a narcissist. Meaning I don't want to, I want to go back to the arcade game, more fun thing. I have $5. I could keep the $5. But what fun is it?
Ain't no fun if your homies can't have it.
But listen, it's been there's so many journeys. I also did my own sauce.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and act.
No, but I want to talk about that too, because
I was able to turn things in my family's life.
Yep.
And make a product out of it.
Yep.
I wanted to make a sauce because I am authentic. I come from a big family that I grew up, and it's like in my nostrils. So why not? And I also, as creatives, anybody listening or watching, I want you to think that way. If you're a guy who grew up and your fucking father was like a candy truck delivery guy, maybe take a chance to get into candy and figure it out, and maybe re-put that out there. Even with grief, I meet a lot of people, naming an LLC after like your grandmother. you know, that has a meaning.
Yeah.
You know, I asked my mother, you know, I spoke before about foster parenting. I did an episode where I didn't put it out. I may put it out this year. And I was asking her, I said, why did you do foster parenting? And she said, because I'm just a housewife. And I wanted to do something more than just for you guys. Like, meaning, like, I wanted to do something that could help other people as well. And you know, I feel like she's cut from a cloth that don't exist anymore. But that, when you find those people, you don't brag. Like, for instance, we're sitting here talking about making, you know, I have friends where I'm like, well, I got to go pick this up, and then I got to go, hey, Mahan, nice to be you. And then I got friends like, kind of like, hey, that's how you do it. Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, that whole quote, when you're not bragging when you're around the right people, it's true. Find the energy. You know, I could sit here and complain all day about all the bad things that have happened in my life. But find the energy that you want. Find the energy that appreciates you. Even me, some days, as an elder statesman of being around, you know, I'll get my time wasted, or I'll meet people who don't appreciate my energy. Just bring it where it's appreciated. Yeah. You know, and I think, you know, but yeah, man, I mean, listen, when you think about taking a mask off, I think we did that today. You know, building a journey and telling someone's story is hard to do in one episode. I think getting passionate points out is what I want to say. Like, I do want to quickly talk about when we speak about friends and legacy and keeping them alive and keeping their name alive. You know, it's important to me on that. You know, I think that we live in a world where somebody dies and then someone dies again, and they forget about the person who died before that. You know,
it's so quick. It's on to the next one.
Crash happens, or like somebody big dies, they forget about it. And you know, I don't want people to forget about, you know, these people that were so special throughout my journey and career.
So with that, I mean, so this season is dedicated to Clark, right? So everybody that's on this episode, I mean, on this season, will have something or some type of relationship with him. So usually we'll ask people to give us a quick story, right? Just about the person, something you remember about them. Could be anything. But would you mind doing that for Clark, Reggie, and Dallas?
Sure. Now, is there anything anything it could be?
It could be anything. It could be when you first met. It could be something they told you. It could be whatever.
Well, first of all, with Dallas, I want to say this. There's so many special moments, but I want to say this as an innovator. When the first time I met him, I'll never forget, he had his camera this way, and he turned it around. He's in the middle of the fucking street, and he's like, "Internets!" And my friends are like, "Oh, who the fuck is this guy? This guy's an asshole." Yeah, so they're like, what's the matter with your man? Not to mention that he was maybe like a 3X, and he was wearing like a medium RLX. But I tell that story because what does everybody do now?
Yep. Everybody's selfies.
You know? And he was an innovator, man. He seen the light, you know, and I promise you, he gave more than he took on his time here.
1,000%.
And to me, Dallas Penn was a very special guy because he cared that much. His energy, when I think about our friendship or even meeting him, I'm like, of course, we were supposed to meet. Like, my energy, his energy, and to be able to have a brotherhood with him, like where he would even big me up about like being a father. And many, man, I don't want to lose it here, but I never had a friend do that. He would, you know, tell me like, yo, you're so good with your daughter, man. What you did, man. You know, she loves you. You raised a great kid.
He was so genuine in that way, and he never was scared to say the shit out loud.
Yeah, and tell you the real.
Oh yeah.
No sugarcoat.
In front of everybody, it didn't matter where, when, anything. If he had the opportunity, he gave that to you.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And I think somebody like Combat, I have so many moments with Combat, so many moments with Dallas, so many moments with Clark. I mean, even with Clark, I'll give you an example. I remember years ago there was this kid named D. Sickle, and he was a graphic designer, and I made him like make me this foam posit. And it was like a glow positive. It was just like a vision. It wasn't real. It was, it was kind of, I guess what they say, AI, back then. And it went all over the blogs. And then I sent it, I don't know, I just was like the afternoon, I sent it to Clark. Because if I got a sneaker, and a lot of people could relate to this, but if you got a sneaker that Clark didn't get, I was getting a phone call. Like, where did you get that? And then all of a sudden now I gotta give him all these people's names, and I'm like, come on. You know what I mean?
He was good for that one.
But I'll never forget, I sent him this picture. He called me right away. Holy fuck. He's like, what is that? I'm like, yo, it's a vision I had. He's like, I'm gonna get that fucking made for you. Watch. And I was like, holy shit, he's gonna get this fucking made for me. And then all of a sudden, maybe like 10 minutes later, he saw it was all over the place. And he was like, what the fuck? I can't do it now. They won't do it. Because you know how Nike don't want anybody else with their girl. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, they want, like, and at the end of the day, it's... But anyway, it's just passionate that he was... And we were able to share so many pizza... We're both pizza lovers. One thing about Clark Kent, I will say, is he was cut from a cloth that don't exist anymore. He was an old school gangster. The way he knew how to move, the way he knew the person. Like, he's the guy who wouldn't know the guy at the door to keep the ice cold. You know what I mean? Tip him $10. He knew he was an old school gangster. He knew, and he was just such. What I will say about him is he was such an aficionado in things that he inspired so many other people. Mm-hmm. We love pizza. We love again so many people he shared these moments with, but. Going to Clark Kent's 4th of July barbecue party, I mean, was just a highlight. I remember like him and Buster. Like I remember Buster was going to perform. I'm watching Buster's son. The kid was like a young kid. Clark was knew how to bring everybody together, man. Just like Dallas, just a great dot connector. Not looking in for it, and. So that was, I said about Clark, I said about Dallas. And Combat, I mean, there's so many, but I will say this, it's, man, you think about it, it's crazy of how many years he's passed away too.
Yeah, but, wild.
Yeah, But Combat, there's so many moments, you put me on the spot here, I want to make sure I give a good one. But I would say a special one to me is when I think I was like early on the show, and I don't know if I even told this, but I was early on the show, and I remember Dallas. I was working a night job, and Dallas told me to listen to my voice. Mm. And I didn't like to listen to anything. I was kind of just do it and then go. It was like I would just throw the ball up in the air. Because even Premium Pete Show episodes I've done, when I was done, I was like, I had confidence that it was good, but then I would listen, like, holy shit, this is actually way better than I thought. So that goes to show you, some people were harder on ourselves than you can really think. But with Combat, I never forget, Dallas told me to listen to my voice. I used to fall asleep. And it's very weird because I'm not like that. Like, I'm not a person only about myself. But I would fall asleep listening to my voice and how to get better. Because he was telling me, you got to come in like a double dutch. Mm-hmm. And the way he said that, it fucking blew my mind. Because then I knew I wanted to get in. Because then I'm kind of I had a couple of men. And I'm listening with the headphones. And you would hear, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, okay, so what I mean was, you were to learn how to jump in. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, like, we're hanging out, and Combat started off with a Dallas Penn. So it's Combat Jack featuring Dallas Penn. Yep. And it'll always be that way. Mm-hmm. I'm just another one of the many different callers, but we had such great memories. But I'll never forget, Dallas one day doesn't show up. And Combat literally is calling me off the hook, and he's like, yo, what's up with your man? And I'm like, what do you mean, my man? This is your man. This is Combat Jack Show featuring Dallas Penn. And that was the first time that Dallas told me something like, Dallas was funny like that. He's like, yo, I'm meeting Sue, I'm not coming tonight. I'm like, yeah, but you gotta tell them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Dallas was,
they'll be all right.
Yeah, it was weird like that. And I'll never forget, I wound up getting Dallas to come. And Combat pulled me to the side, and he had told me, and he said, let me tell you something. He said, I don't know what there is about you, but there's something really special about you. And he says, as long as you're here, let it come out. And I told him, I said, what do you mean? He said, I don't know. And that always stuck with me. That always stuck with me. And to our last day, that, you know, and he was a bigger than life type of guy. You know, and I think that those moments, you know, and the reason why even I bring these up for, or even to talk about them, because I think the people in your life at the end of the day will be able to tell you who you are when you're not here. And I think they would be proud to hear me say that Dallas Combat, let me actually, I think that they would be proud for me to say, I think that Dallas Combat and Clark Kent, you know, are just people that will forever be remembered. You know, true lights of life, true guiders, and just true supporters. You know, I mean, people. I think about somebody like Clark Kent. I mean, this is a guy who will break down a door for you. Very few friends that you call
Superman
will open a door for you. You know what I mean? That will open a door for you. A lot of people are like, yo, that's my door. I have a key. How you doing? And very few people will open a door for you. So I will always remember people like Combat.
He wouldn't open. He'd kick it open and be like, yo, this is my man.
Yeah.
Talk to him like you talk to me.
Yeah. You know, that's why I say it's so exactly like, you know, even having someone say that, like, you know, I don't think you understand.
Nah.
This is my man.
Yeah.
You know, and then people are like, wow, yeah. Where you want me to sign a check?
Nah.
You know what I mean? Like it's special, and I think that I hope that I could, you know, keep their memory and their name and their light alive. But yeah, take it wherever you want to go to finish.
And then, all right, last three questions. What was the most pivotal experience in your life?
Jail. Wasting years of my life for bad decisions. You know, like we as people can't sit here and be mad at life if we made those decisions.
Yep.
And I think, you know, it's something that, even though it made me and shaped me and gave me a chance, I'm sitting here telling you, fucking, I was with people who were away for a longer time, so I didn't like compete with them, because that's not what you do.
Yeah.
When you like, say if somebody's there for 20 years and you're there for 3, you don't talk about stuff like that. But fucking 3 seconds in jail is way too much. To give your freedom away is too much. So I would say it was a pivotal moment for me to put fire in my eyes, to come home and stay home, to never go back to jail, to really, and then just try to make a difference, and really just try to give my parents less headache. You know what I mean? So.
What keeps you the most grounded, or who keeps you grounded?
My kids. I would say this to anybody, and even if you don't have kids, find something that you get lost in. You know, my daughter's gonna be 25, my son's gonna be 10, so I'm living life again. Even my son, Dad, I want to roll down this hill. Dad, I want to roll down. I'm busy. I got to send this email. You want to stay in that school? You got to. Who gives a shit? I run down the fucking hill. You know what I mean? Because it's like, how many years?
Presence over presence.
In 10 years, ain't nobody can give a fuck about you running down the hill. He's busy. Dad, get away from me.
Right.
You know, I meet my daughter now. Like, we pull up, we meet for lunch, and then we drive off. It's such a fucking amazing, weird feeling. I just look at her, drive away. And but I would say they give me, on bad days, if you have a dog, if you have a kid, if you have something you love, it's something you cherish, on the bad days, get lost in it. And if you do have kids, get lost in them. Like, meaning when you have a bad day, come home and just like fucking, if they're young, like come home and just like fucking play dinosaur. I know it sounds funny, but I'm just saying, get lost in, because it doesn't last forever.
Who's been the most inspirational in your life?
I would say my mother and my aunt. You know, they're twins. They've both been in my life. They're both 80 years old. They just turned. They lost their mother when they were 17. My aunt came and became their mother. I never knew. I always called her grandma. They never were bitter to anybody else. They treated people like mothers. They became mothers to people. And, you know, I'm a mama's boy. I'm not afraid to admit that. Not in a bad way. Like me, I could cook, I could clean, I could take care of myself. You know, but those two women are the inspiration.
And I have to say, it's beautiful, bro, how you really hold them.
Yeah.
Oh, man, you hold them up in a way that is like, I think, inspirational to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because, you know, especially now, it's like, you know, we have to act a certain way. We think we have to act a certain way, but that love, and I also think that's what bleeds through you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the fuel to your love and how you've given that, and I've seen what that's done for you.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
reciprocated a lot.
Yeah, and I feed off of that, and you know, like I said, they're two women. You know, it's like even think about it. Like, it's funny you say that. Even somebody like, and shouts to Sean Peck, has even I seen him out while I was, I love how you are with your aunties. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you know, everybody has an aunt or auntie or a thing. But
Well,
it's like,
not everybody, but
well, not like that. Meaning I never forget what they did for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, my aunt loves TV. Loves TV. She lived, well, I mean, forget it. Like, she still has TV Guide. You know what I mean? I go to a house. She's got like a 32-inch TV. I'm like, oh, no. We going to fucking, I went there, got a fucking 65-inch. Forget, it's like a fucking movie theater in there. Because I remember what she did for me. It's not about money. It's not about, I remember what she did for me. And that, to me, is what makes life go round.
yeah, that's the love.
That's the mask off and on.
That's the love. Last thing, what are you most proud of today?
Oh, that I never gave up. You know, that I never gave up. You know, there were times where, you know, even when I was in the box and, you know, sometimes I look back, I'm just being honest. Anybody could relate to this, you know. You know, I got married, I got divorced, you know. I had a kid. I had another kid, it didn't work out. You know, I have great relationships with my kids' moms, but it just didn't work out. You know, I went to jail. I wasted a lot of time. I could have probably made more money. And the reason why I'm saying this for is because I never gave up. And I'm not, you know, there've been times where it's been hard, you know, and even going through chapters of losing people. You know, even with Combat in Dallas, I feel like I lost a chapter in my life. I'm just being honest. Yeah. But we did that. And that will always live out there, and that spaceship will always fly high. But I say this only to say to anybody else, never give up, even when it gets tough. Yeah. You know, find something, find somebody. You know, I meet a lot of men these days sometimes, even people, I'm surprised at how lost some of them are. I mean, where they're willing to just give up. Yeah. You know, and I'm here to, you know, I no matter how tough it got, I never gave up. And I just wanted to live for somebody else if I couldn't live for myself, and now I live for myself. So,
dope. Well, that's a perfect way to end this one, yeah. Bro. Appreciate you, man.
Oh, man. So I got you to make me cry, but that was special, man. We almost cried. Right. Was that tissues?
We cried on the inside.
No, you almost got me. But you don't need to cry to I'll be honest with you, I do an episode. I don't do an episode for me. I do an episode for people who are listening. So I hope that touched somebody. You know?
I'm sure.
Yeah.